Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
All right, here we go, Josh.
Okay, so we're going to do a quick cuts today, and we haven't had an episode in a little while, and I'm sure you've seen way more movies than I have. I've seen a few, but I've been lacking in my movie-going experiences recently, so pick me up. What have you seen?
So I'm interested in the fact that you think I've seen way more than you have. I bet I haven't.
Really?
I bet
Okay.
yeah, and this is why, because I have been watching a lot of the streaming shows that are ending this year. Ozark ended. It was broken up into two parts, and the second part ended recently, and I enjoyed that show, and I thought it ended well. There's controversy, as there always is when a show ends, and everybody didn't like it, and, you know, The Sopranos went black, and blah, 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 blah. I thought they stayed true to the characters, and I thought that Laura Linney proved that she deserves yet another Emmy and yet another Emmy nomination. So it's going to be interesting to see, because that show has done really well when it comes to accolades, and it's the last season, and people have a tendency to, you know, have a heartfelt goodbye to it. And Jason Bateman directed a few of them. I think he actually is the one who should win the Emmy for Best Actor in a drama series, as what I guess it would be, or it might be miniseries. I'm not sure how they break those things up nowadays. So that ended, and that was satisfying, I thought. Grace and Frankie ended, which I've watched all 7 seasons of that. And they also did like a 4-show episode beginning, and then did the rest of the season with a little interlude in between. And Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, enough said. I thought they ended it well. I thought it was sweet. It's a funny show. It's quirky. If you get a chance, it's worth checking out. It's a bit over the top, but you know, it's kind of what it's supposed to be. They use everything possible that you know about Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin as people, or what they have been suspected to be like as people, as character traits also. And I think that's interesting. And then, of course, This Is Us ended. And as we speak, I have not seen the last episode. I am not in the place where I normally would see it. So I have it recorded, and I'm off all social media until tomorrow night until I see it.
I've seen a lot of promos for it, because I work at an NBC station, so like, oh my gosh, they are just hammering that hard.
Well, This Is Us is everything. In the last 3 or 4 episodes, I don't know what it is about that show, and I'm a sucker for it. The music swells, and the tears flow, and then my tears flow, but this is the ending of something that I've stuck with for 6 years. So it's always interesting. It's not about satisfaction in the last episode, because how can you possibly have full satisfaction in the last episode? Name one show other than MASH and maybe Cheers that ended and everybody was satisfied with the ending. There's not many. So I don't look at it that way. I just look at it like a 6-year relationship, and it's ending, but on good terms, and you get to say goodbye. And those characters have stuck with me. It's like when I saw the last Lord of the Rings, and I waited for the music to swell, and then the pictures, the drawings at the end of Return of the King. And I cried like a baby, because I'm going to miss these people. I'm going to miss these characters. So it's been more of a streaming shows the last couple of weeks. And then I wanted to mention 2 new ones that are out there. And I don't know how far they're going to go, but they're in their first season. But sometimes, especially on Netflix will take a 1-year show and say episode 1, season 1. Even though it's only ever going to be season 1. So I'm not sure if they're going to continue, but there's a show called Night Sky. Have you heard about it, with J.K. Simmons and Sissy Spacek?
No.
Well, when J.K. Simmons and Sissy Spacek are the lead of any show, I'm in. Because you know you're in good hands. And it's sci-fi-ish, if that's a word, and it's interesting, and they have great character arcs. Now, I don't know if it's going to continue past 1 season. It looks like it is. Maybe if it gets picked up again, I'm not really sure, but it was interesting. And then also, have you heard of this Josh Brolin show called Outer Range?
I saw a little bit about it, but I don't know much about it. It's kind of like Cowboys versus Aliens ish. I mean, Cowboys and Aliens.
Yes. I was going to say, it's not like the Daniel Craig.
It's not Jon Favreau and Daniel Craig.
I like that
directing.
movie. I like that movie.
You know what? Steph and I went with our good friends in Kansas City to the movies, and me and Patrick, her best friend's husband, we were like, well, you know what? We're gonna go see Cowboys and Aliens, and you guys see whatever you want, some whatever girly crap you want to see. So we got in there. We watched Cowboys and Aliens. We watched James Bond fight aliens with a cowboy hat on, and it wasn't that great for me, at least. And then Steph and her friend Liz decided to go see this other movie, a little movie called Crazy Stupid Love, which is an amazing movie. It is so hilarious and it's awesome. And I kind of wish that we would have just gone to the chick flick with them because it would have really paid off, I think. But
you have chosen unwisely, son.
Ugh, I know.
Okay, let's back up. I hate the term chick flick. I just have to state for the record, I hate it. Not that it's...
But that's what that was our mindset, is like,
Totally.
we're not going to go see that chick flick. But it
Totally
turns
get
out
it.
it's not even a chick flick. It's
No.
a really funny movie.
See, this is why I reject that term.
Yeah.
I just wish that more guys like you would see more chick flicks, and then more chick flick type goers would see things like Field of Dreams and Cowboys and Indians. We would be a much better society. We'd be much better off. I understand we categorize everything in this country and in this world. You have to have a tagline. You have to say, you know, we talked about this before with the commercials for Fight Club. There was a romantic themed Fight Club trailer. And I was like, there is not. And sure enough, my buddy's like, yes, there is. Watch. You know, and it starts off like your traditional rom-com trailer. You know, then there was this girl named Marla. And I was like, wait, this is way deceptive. So anyway, you use the terms that you feel comfortable with. It's not a statement or a soapbox about that. I just reject that because I'm wondering how many people didn't see certain movies because they thought that they were going to see a chick flick, and one, could admit it, and two, suck it up, because there's some good stuff out there that's been considered chick flicks. And you just gave me the example, and I'm going to steal that story from now on. You know, my buddy was going to go see Crazy Stupid Love, which is a great movie, by the way.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, if you get a chance, check out. Imogen Poots is in Outer Range with Josh Brolin. Yeah, she's the female lead. So you know, I know you like her, and I know that we've liked her in the past, and she's done some really good work, and she's doing some good work in this. It's just do you remember the desk clerk from Bad Times at the El Royale?
Yeah.
You remember remember?
Logan,
and I kept saying
somebody.
Yeah, I don't
Logan
know his name.
Lerman, I think is his name.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's also in Outer Range. And there's also a character that was in the last season of Ozark, Tom Pelfrey. Who should have been nominated.
You've talked about him before.
They're the two brothers in this. And when I figured out it was them two, I was like, I'm in. I mean, Josh Brolin brought me Imogen Poots. You know, how bad could it be? And then the two brothers. And I was like, they put in two of the best performances monologue wise I've seen in films in a long time. So yeah, it's worth seeing.
Well, since we're on actual TV shows, I'll go through some of the TV shows that Steph and I have been watching. Lewis Pullman is his name, not Logan Lerman. So
Logan Lerman is the guy from
Fury.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Wallflower.
Right. So Lewis Pullman is, I knew it started with an L, but yeah, totally different person. So I've watched, Steph and I have been keeping up on the Marvel shows, and we watched Moon Knight, even though it took us forever to finish it. It just seemed like an obligation as opposed to something that I was really excited to watch. And we've actually been watching some just kind of regular 30-minute shows that are fun and easy, like Young Rock and Mr. Mayor. And those are, I mean, I'm not an NBC shill or anything, but they are on NBC. But I do like both of those shows. And those are easy, like, you know, eating dinner, watch something like that. But then, you know, on the kind of the getting towards the other side, we just finished The Flight Attendant tonight. That's a show on HBO Max with Kaylee Cuoco. And she's actually, I mean, I know she was in Big Bang Theory forever, and you could kind of reduce her down to a caricature potentially in that show, and that may be what she was initially playing in that show. But in this show, she stretches out a little bit more, and you have Zosha Mamet in it too as a co-star, and they surround her with other, good actors, and the show's kind of off the wall in a lot of ways, but it does try to deal with some interesting subjects too, like alcoholism and mental illness and all kinds of things, on top of being a little bit snarky, and then also kind of being a quote unquote detective show. It's not really a detective show, but it's like this is a mystery.
Thriller.
We need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Thriller. Yeah. So, and then Severance is another show that, how you said that there were shows where you're not sure if there's going to be a second season, that kind of a thing. I really hope there is a second season to Severance, but it's an Apple Plus show, and it's like 8 episodes or 9 episodes, something like that. And it kind of like, scratches me where I itch, because it's a high concept show, and it stars Adam Scott and a couple other like great character actors on top of John Turturro, who is, a great character actor. Christopher Walken's in it. There's a couple other people in it, but it's so high concept. It's about being able to have this like perfect work-life balance where you go down this elevator when you go to work, and then you don't remember anything that happened when you weren't at work while you're at work, and you don't remember anything that happened while you're at work while you're not at work. So who wouldn't want that? And then we get into all of the different permutations and reasons why. Maybe what are the reasons why a company would even want to offer that? And then you start building upon that. What happens if the person inside doesn't want to be inside? And you all of that grows, and it gets intriguing immediately. So I love that concept, and I love their ability to move the story forward, keep you interested in the characters, and then even every episode giving you cliffhangers, which if you do wait and just hit all of the episodes all at once, over a weekend, which you can totally do. I felt like watching it week to week, I got a little bit of like what I felt when I was watching Lost, or when I was watching those shows, before their inevitable ends, where it's kind of like a puzzle box show. And I really did enjoy that.
I have seen the first 2 episodes of The Flight Attendant, and I will finish watching it. And Rosie Perez always calls to me. I will watch anything that she's in. I find her very interesting, and I like what she's doing already in this. And I've seen the first 2 episodes of Severance too. And Ben Stiller is one of the directors, and Patricia Arquette is also in it. And anything those 2 get together to do has been very interesting to me.
The Dana Mora show.
Yeah. Oh, that was tough.
I haven't seen that yet.
It was tough. Never again. I don't think so. I always say never again, and then I end up watching it 20 years later to see how I react to it. But I heard an NPR special about Severance, and they were talking to, it wasn't Ben Stiller and it wasn't Adam Scott. It was somebody else, and I cannot remember who it was. And I was like, well, this sounds interesting. And then I started watching it, and I was like, do I really want to watch some corporate office mind-numbing thing where you're one person during the day and then one person at night? And I was like, and I love Adam Scott. I think that he is finally going to get his due. Not that he's been working nonstop for the last 15 years or 10 years at least.
He was great in Big Little Lies too. I know people talk about the women in that show, rightfully so, but he was really good in that show.
But he's done well. He's a working actor who is semi-well known, but I don't think that hurts him. I think it helps him that he's not as well known. I believe this show is going to tip it over, though, for him. I think he's going to get an Emmy nomination. I think that everybody's going to be like, oh, we know that guy, and finally put a name to a face, which most people should be able to after Parks and Recreation and after everything else that he's done. But I can't give myself over to the concept just yet. I'm not saying it's a bad concept. I'm just saying I just can't do it just yet. I don't know why. I will eventually, but right now I can't. Sometimes things are I feel things so deeply that I have to go very carefully, and then I end up coming out of it going, yep, I felt everything I felt, and I don't want to feel that anymore. I'm going to turn on some animated DC movie because I just can't. I can't do it.
I think that there's a feedback loop that's created in this show, and it starts with the production design, and when they're down in the offices, and that production design kind of, and the sound design actually kind of feeds on your dread, and then the things that start happening in the show, and that you can feel the just the choices that they make. Like they're in this big, huge office, but there's only 4 desks and all 4 desks are shoved right next to each other.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
that. It's unnerving. And all of the different choices of like what they have on their desks, where the things that they can eat, the break room itself, how the break room is so clean and clinical. And it's all of these things just, they feel wrong. They just feel like they're out of place. And then also just the metaphor of being rats in a maze, like just getting to their office from the elevator is like it's some sort of Sisyphean task. You have to go down all of these different hallways and turn in here and turn there. And you got to remember all that stuff. And so it's just meant to keep you disoriented. And so I think that all of that plays into what's going on, what people are saying, what people are feeling. And then, they just feed back on each other. And it's really well done. And it gets crazier as the show goes on.
Yeah, I knew that. I could sense it. And I was like, nope, it's not the time. What kind of task did you say that was? Define what you said.
Oh, Sisyphean, like it's impossible to do. It's something that you have to keep doing it over and over and over again. Like Sisyphus was the guy in Greek mythology that pushed the boulder up the mountain, and then by the end of the day, he's done, and the boulder's at the top, it rolls back down, and the next day he has to start all over again. So that's kind of like what these people are doing. They're doing the same thing every day, and that they never leave. Essentially, the people who are inside the work, they just get into that elevator, and then as far as their consciousness is concerned, they immediately come back out of the elevator. And so that it's gonna wear on you, and so all of the questions that immediately pop to mind, they deal with those and more that you don't even think of. So yeah, it's a cool show. And lastly, I just finished Atlanta, which, if you haven't seen Atlanta, I don't think you have. There's 3 seasons now. I think it's something that it's the perfect investment, because I think you're not going to be wanting for questions. The show is built upon raising questions and not necessarily answering them. And it's also not necessarily interested in being a pretty little thing for everybody. It's kind of like different seasons, I think, especially after seeing this 3rd season, different seasons, I think, are focused on different audiences. And if you want to be a part of watching it, great, but they're not necessarily trying to cater to every single person. And Donald Glover as an artist is amazing. And you can tell that he has so many thoughts, and all the people in his writer's room, I'm sure, have so many thoughts, and they want to make sure that like they are able to flesh them out in a really artistic way. And his ability to switch tone is masterful. We talk about it a lot in movies, and the command of tone in this show is amazing. Like, they know exactly what they want you to feel when they want you to feel it, and they know exactly when to pull the rug out from under you. And you have to fight against viscerally reacting to this show. And I think that is something that I definitely don't get that in Young Rock or Mr. Mayor. And so even though this show is a nominally 30-minute long episode show, just like those other 2 shows, it's a totally different experience. So yeah, you need to watch Atlanta. And I don't say that very often.
Yeah, I know you don't. And I was just thinking to myself, he never says that to me. And I always say the same thing whenever anybody says, have you seen, will you watch, blah, blah, blah. Everything in its due time. And we've often talked about giving ourselves a break. You can't see everything. You have to go to work. You have to, even if you had all the time in the world, which I have had quite a bit of time recently, you still, sometimes it's too much. And then if you watch too much, you forget about the last thing that you watched and your emotional reaction to it. Sometimes you just have to sit on it.
Are we ready to talk about movies finally?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Golly.
That was 18 minutes. Relax. And we talked about like 7 shows. That's pretty good.
Well, I saw Old. Have you seen that yet? M. Night Shyamalan.
No.
Okay. Yeah. It has the potential to be a good Twilight Zone episode. So that's it.
You're hilarious. You're
Next.
so funny. You are so funny.
Actually, Gael Garcia Bernal's really good. Vicky Krieps is good. I mean, like, the acting from Hereditary, Alex Wolff, he's in it.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, I mean, and Rufus Sewell, you can kind of guess what Rufus Sewell does, because he does whatever he does in all the other movies that he's in.
You are funny.
But yeah, so it's I don't know, it's an interesting concept, but yeah, I felt like it was, and it must have been difficult to make because I think they made it during COVID, and so yeah, anybody who like went out and made a movie during COVID, like I have respect for you because it had to be really difficult to make it happen during like the super lockdown portion of COVID.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I have often fallen on the category or in the category of giving M. Night Shyamalan a break. I have liked a lot of things a lot of people haven't. So
I love a lot of his movies. I love Signs. I love The Village. Like I have no.
Most people don't though.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? I
just
like the
watched
other ones
part
too.
of Signs again.
Signs
just
is
recently.
great.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. I like the twist, and I like the twist in The Village too. And everybody's like, ah. I'm like, listen, that's a thing he does now, and it's because you people freaked out over Sixth Sense. And the twist is what freaked you out. So now he has a thing. It's his shtick. And he can't come up with the ending of Sixth Sense in every one of his movies because that's not the theme of the movie. So he has to go with the surprise now because that's his thing. And I admire somebody who does it as well as he has done it since The Sixth Sense. Well, actually, his first movie doesn't have... Well, yeah, it does. It has a twist. It does.
Yeah, I mean, did people get mad at Agatha Christie for writing novels like she did? I mean...
People are mad at themselves for being mad at stuff. So...
I don't know. It's that kind of stuff where it's like, I don't know what you expect. Like, did people get mad at Ian Fleming for writing James Bond novels? It's a James Bond novel. It's going to be very similar. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, we're going to talk about a movie in just a second that I went to see that actually is something I thought was based on something else, but the thing I thought it was based on is the thing that thing is based on. I'll explain. I know. That didn't make any sense at all. I just wanted to look up M. Night Shyamalan's bio because I want to see the first movie that he directed, Wide Awake. Well, it's not the first, actually, because it's called Praying with Anger, which looks like his first film, and then his second film, Wide Awake. Very interesting little film. Rosie O'Donnell plays a nun about a Catholic school and this young kid coming of age, if you will. And there's a nice, sweet little twist at the end of it. And it's like, oh, that's sweet. I like that. And so anybody who knows him has to be set up for it. So I broke my movies up into 3 categories. Slit My Wrist. I'll watch it again and again. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Because 2 of the movies on my list were like daunting. But I'm going to start with the easy stuff. So I saw Jungle Cruise, the Disney film. Yeah, my little nephew, 12, well, he's not little, he's 12. He was like, do you want to watch it? It's fun. And I wished that I was 10 years old again because the suspension of disbelief that it takes to watch that movie is really deep. And he was all about it and he's laughing at it. And I was laughing at it too. And there's a lot of fun pratfall-esque things, and I think all 3 of the leads do a great job, and I think The Rock is finally the movie star he wanted to be, and Emily Blunt, how bad could it be, right?
Yeah.
And they poke fun at things that, I don't know if you've ever been on a Disney Jungle Cruise, but there are certain things on the cruise that you're like, wait, that's nowhere in a jungle anywhere. And they actually make fun of that in the movie. And they actually give it this Pirates of the Caribbean thing going on, which I guess is what Disney does. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. It's a popcorn movie. I think it would have been better in a theater, and the CGI effects are better when you're watching it on the big screen. But there's a couple of things that kept pulling me out. And actually, it's your fault because I kept thinking to myself, Josh would hate that. I
didn't hate the movie, but I hated the fact that it's like, these guys are just on a set with a big green screen around them playing around on a boat. Like, that's 3/4 of the movie, which that's, like you said, if you're a 10-year-old, that's fine. It's awesome. And you get to see all kinds of like alligators or whatever coming out of the water, but none of that's real. And you can tell that it's not real, but that's fine.
I think most of the things they do in the film are fine because it's a fantasy and it's fantastical. It's when you recreate a creature that we know and you don't go life of pi on it. You have to go life of pi on it. You have to spend the money to go life of pi or pull the character out because it definitely, or make it completely animated. Why not? Who cares? It's a Disney film. I mean, for 2 hours, I was entertained. It was fun. And I have a strong suspension of disbelief. So I rode the wave. I I thought the legend was cool. I thought the way it ended was cool. So I was fine with it. I mean, it didn't hurt anything. And then I saw The Secrets of Dumbledore. Well, Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that franchise needs help. They started it out with Fantastic Beasts, and it was fantastic. And there were beasts, and now it's turned into the backstory of Dumbledore, which I'm fine with. But you're waiting for these secrets, and then you get through the film, and you're like, wait, if you've read the books, you know those secrets already. So those are not secrets. What's the secret? That person's lineage is the secret? Wait, I'm not sure what the secret is, because that's in the book. So I wanted to have a good time. I wanted to be just, because remember, I didn't watch Fantastic Beasts for the longest time. Then I watched it like 8 times in a row because I had such a good time watching it. And the second one, The Crimes of Grindelwald, or Wall, or however you say his last name, Wald, right? W-A-L-D. Yeah. Was fine, and I thought Johnny Depp was interesting. And of course, he's recast in the new one. Mads Mikkelsen, he's great. They don't say a thing about it being a different looking person. They just leave it alone. There's a character left completely out of it. It just is unfocused. It's one of those films that you go and you watch and you think to yourself, and this is going to bleed into my next film too. When you see a film like The Secrets of Dumbledore and it just doesn't work, you see the flaws of the franchise and you see why people who aren't into it, why they're not into it. Like you go, this is why they're not into it. This is flawed. And so Eddie Redmayne is kind of a minor character in this, which is a mistake in my opinion. Jude Law is great.
What about Catherine Waterston? Is she in it still? No?
For about 2 minutes.
Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, geez.
Yep. I don't know if it was COVID or if it was contractual issues or if it was her speaking out about the trans issues that J.K. Rowling has found herself in.
Oh.
That's what a lot of people believe. But I don't know. But no, she's not in the film. They replace her with somebody who's in the second film, and they bring her up to being a main character. So it's as if she's sort of standing in for the actual lead character that was in 2 other films. So yeah, I mean, they handled it fine. They throw it away in a line. And it's the least of the issues of the film. So if you want, I can tell you my third popcorn film, or do you want to go ahead and talk about something that you want to talk about?
I have popcorn films that I watched.
So I watched Doctor Strange.
That's, oh no. The bloom is off the rose.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
Well,
it's been 12 years.
No. I mean, yeah, it's been more than that. It's been 14 years since Iron Man, but yeah, still. That's a long run. That's what I was wondering is that, you were talking about the Crimes of Dumbledore or Grindelwald or whatever he's called on this newest Fantastic Beasts.
2 totally different people.
I know. On this newest Fantastic Beasts, and it does seem like this is making that movie is kind of like IP, intellectual property driving art, instead of we have a story to tell and we have this intellectual property in which to tell it. It was a stretch to begin with. That Fantastic Beasts thing was a stretch to begin with, and they made it work. They made it work with the characters, and they made it work with the plot, and just with all of it being able to fit into the Harry Potter world, but also not be Harry Potter. That's fine. But I was wondering when this would happen in the MCU, when they, instead of telling stories that are engaging stories and interesting stories and using the intellectual property that they have, all the characters in the comic books, when will it get to the point where they're essentially like just using those characters as tools to push forward the MCU agenda, not like political agenda, but the MCU, like we have to get from point A to point B to point C to point D. Like at what point does a Doctor Strange movie become a get from point B to point C type of a movie? And I haven't seen the movie, but that's my biggest fear. I think TV shows perfectly fine to do that. Like Loki, what they did with Loki. It's like, hey, here's a new spin on this character. And we're also going to introduce the multiverse. So, well, in a very official way in the MCU. not like Spider-Man in the multiverse. That I think worked, and especially since it was a TV show, but I would not expect that in a movie. And that's what I fear about this movie, even though I haven't seen it yet.
How often do your fears come true? Are they realized?
When it comes to like corporate media, like a good amount.
Well, welcome. It's here.
That sucks. That makes me not want to go see it in the theater then.
Well, there's been a couple of episodes in the past that I have looked back on and listened back on, and I've been disappointed in not keeping up the one rule, if you will, that I have for myself and that we have for the podcast, that you always start with the positive.
Yeah.
And I think I started with the positive. I didn't say much about Jungle Cruise that wasn't pleasant. And I didn't really say much about Secrets of Dumbledore. Crimes, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And Crimes of Grindelwald.
Grindelwald. Okay.
Secrets of Dumbledore. They're fun movies. You go have popcorn. You don't worry about calories, even though I always get a Coke Zero, which is contradictive in itself. Extra popcorn and butter with Coke Zero, but you have a good time. And you walk out of there and you're entertained, and you've spent 2 hours, and you know that these films have a potential to do more than that. So that might be a little bit of a letdown, but it's hard for me to not immediately go to semi-negative things about Doctor Strange, because it is exactly how you just described it. At least for me, it was. And in the multiverse of madness, I can never remember the title of it. Once again, like I said before, with the Secrets of Dumbledore, this new Doctor Strange film, it gave me an insight to what it must be like to not really like Marvel films, or to not like superhero films, and to not understand why people do. I felt like I was watching it through the eyes of somebody who doesn't even have any connection to it whatsoever. And maybe that's not a good thing, but that's the feeling I took away from it. It felt like I could see all of the reasons why people wish this didn't continue on, and the whole, is it cinema thing? Is it movies? Is it the Scorsese thing? What is it? I mean, there's some good things that happen in that movie, I guess. But I and maybe on a second time, and my nephews want to see it, and we went to see Dumbledore instead of a second time of Doctor Strange. And they were like, I thought we were going to see Doctor Strange. I was like, no, we're going to see Dumbledore. And they were like, okay, that's cool, but when are we going to go see Doctor Strange? I was like, oh no. And I found myself thinking, and I never think this way, I've already seen it. I have no interest in seeing it again. That's just not me. I usually can watch anything over and over again.
Says the guy who watched Captain America Civil War, like 80 times.
Oh my God, I love that movie. I love that movie. Speaking of which, making a transition very carefully into, or not carefully, but making a transition from what you just said into my next movie that I have seen. I watched The Batman again.
Oh, okay.
And again.
Oh, man.
And again. So I've seen it no, that's a lie. No. I've seen it 4 times. Yeah. I've seen it twice in the theater and twice on HBO.
So is it like a dip into for an hour and then like go out and do stuff and then dip back in? Or is it like, I am going to sit here for 3 hours and watch this movie?
Okay, I lied. I've seen it 5 times now that I think about it, because I saw it twice in the movie theater, and then my godson and I spent the weekend together, not this last weekend, a weekend or so ago. And he was like, what do you want to watch? I was like, I don't know. I don't feel like something I don't feel like watching something new. Is there anything? He was like, well, we can watch The Batman again. And I was like, oh, that's cool. We'll get an hour or something. We watched the whole 3 hours.
Wow.
And then I was watching it on HBO Max and stopped watching it for something else. I don't know, Grace and Frankie, whatever. And went back to it. So I split that up. And then 2 nights ago, I thought I'll just watch it because, I saw a clip on YouTube, the final sequence where he blows up the ceiling of the Coliseum and comes flying through. And there's a few little interesting things that my godson and I picked up on. I was like, wait, that's actually not what's going on there. And so we were rewatching it, trying to figure out if that was, and he was defending it like, no, but if you blah blah, and then finally he goes, it's a movie, and I was like, that can't be the end all be all excuse to everything, but I'll accept it. And then I was just going to watch that final sequence again, and I started to look through it, going down the line with the
scrubber.
Is that what that's called?
It's called the scrubber, yeah.
And as I'm going through it, I was like, I want to watch that part too. Screw it. And I went all the way back and watched it all again, and that's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
So I have found the love for the new Batman film. Not that I didn't have it before. I just had some questions about it.
I did watch some popcorn movies myself. Steph and I went to the movie theater and watched The Lost City. Have you heard of that? That's with Channing Tatum
with
and Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, I want to see
No, I
that.
didn't know it was going to come to Paramount Plus like 2 weeks later, but either way, it was a fun night at the movies. And, she's a huge Sandra Bullock fan, and, I'm a Channing Tatum fan too. And speaking of, and it was fine. The movie was fine. It was a very just down the line. It's a movie you don't make they just don't make anymore. Like, it is like a Romancing the Stone, like this exact carbon copy pretty much. And they pepper in things like Brad Pitt has a very small role in it. He's hilarious. He's very self-aware. And Daniel Radcliffe plays the bad guy. And, he's the mustache twirling villain, like pretty much literally mustache twirling villain. It's very paint by numbers, but at the same time, you find yourself getting caught up in the story, in their burgeoning relationship, or what could potentially be a relationship. So yeah, it's fine. And sometimes that's okay. The other movie we saw together like a week later was Dog, with Channing Tatum in it, and she was really excited about that one. Well, because it has a Belgian Malinois in it. It's like a military dog. I mean, you can just have the dog as a pet, but they use them a lot as military dogs or as police dogs. And they're the dogs that were in John Wick 3 that Halle Berry had trained. So same kind of a setup, but great movie about a veteran taking his one of the guys that he was stationed with, who passed away, taking his dog to go get retired, essentially, and going to the funeral of the dog's owner, or the dog's handler, technically, also owner. But so yeah, and it's a road trip movie, and it's a Channing Tatum making fun of himself movie, just like The Lost City was a Channing Tatum making fun of himself movie. But and it also did a good job to honor and celebrate the service of what people in the military give up and what they sacrifice, and then just to represent that. And it also had some funny parts too. So it was good. I was really scared to watch it because I don't like movies where dogs are in peril, but like, this dog's such a hoss that like, I was like, this dog will not be in any peril. She will be able to handle herself.
Okay, the $1 million question is, does Channing Tatum take his shirt off in both films?
I'm sure he does. Yeah. Well, he definitely does in The Lost City. Because there's this shot where she takes leeches off of him. But I'm pretty sure he does in Dog. I can't remember a particular scene where he does in Dog, but I think that's kind of like he understands what he is, and he's trying. Well,
it's like Tom Cruise running in a film. It's just going to be par for the course at this point. And when you look like Channing Tatum and you're in HD and you look like that, then do it.
Speaking of Tom Cruise running, Steph and I rewatched Mission Impossible Fallout, and last night we rewatched Mission Impossible. And also recently we watched Top Gun. So I'm doing my Tom Cruise due diligence for a movie that just opened up, Top Gun Maverick, which I'm excited about seeing. So I'm just going to have to carve out some time to go to the movie theater to watch that. But so those are great. And then I've only watched popcorn movies. This is my life now. So we watched Lethal Weapon 2, which, I mean, it's fine. Their
chemistry is great. So
no. It's actually, it was. I did like that one a lot because you get Leo Getz, you get the Joe Pesci character in this movie. So then they just keep adding characters every Lethal Weapon. But then the big thing that stood out to me in that movie was the music. And then I looked into it, and like it's like super heavy on that sax, like the like crazy, arch saxophone, and then the guitar licks. And then I looked up, and it's David Sanborn and Eric Clapton got composer credits for the movie. David Sanborn, famous jazz saxophonist. Eric Clapton is Eric Clapton. So of course it has. I mean, like, they just leaned into that whole thing of the, oh man, this too bad for Riggs, and then he just big huge guitar lick. So it was fine.
It's so 80s too.
It was good. But just like, yeah, there's stuff that they just don't do in movies now anymore. Just like gratuitous sex scenes. And like the one blonde woman, is definitely going to take her top off. And it's like, I mean, as a middle school kid, no big deal. But it's just funny how like that was expected back then. That was just par for the course back then in a movie. Like if you're going to have an action movie, this will happen. And now it's kind of like not it would be seen as weird if that happened in a movie.
Well, gratuitous.
Yeah, it would be like it just jumped the shark, I guess. Like that whole thing has jumped the shark. So yeah, that was interesting to kind of like watch, Mission Impossible Fallout, which definitely has beautiful women in it, and it has, sexual tension in it, but it doesn't have the gratuitous sex scenes in it. And then lastly, we just over the weekend watched Shang-Chi again, and that's a good movie.
Yes, it is.
I saw so many more things and really engaged with that movie a lot more. The pace is perfect. It keeps you going. It doesn't allow for the plot to sag at all. There's always either new characters being introduced or amazing set pieces, but the set pieces are purposeful. The side of the building fight that they have with the bamboo scaffolding, and it has family dynamics, and it has beautiful fight choreography and great music. And then, you get Ben Kingsley just shoved right in the middle of it, and he's hilarious. I told Steph, I was like, this guy won an Academy Award for being Gandhi, right? She's like, that guy? It's like, yeah, that guy. So
if I'm not mistaken, it's his first nomination and his first film too.
Oh my gosh. Really? Oh my gosh.
I think so.
I didn't bring up his amazing turn in Sexy Beast either, but Steph would
which he was nominated for.
He was nominated for that? Oh
yes,
yeah.
He was.
That was amazing role, and he knocked that one out of the park too. But yeah, every time I see him as that Trevor Slattery character, I just think of like, his menacing performances in other House of Sand and Fog. Like, I mean,
I love that nominated.
Oh, jeez.
Should have won.
But yeah.
What else? It's also sort of a redeeming character. They redeemed that character because of what they did in the third Iron Man. They sort of made up for it. They called it out for itself, and they make fun of the meta, but they also apologize for the ridiculousness that Iron Man 3 put him through.
I guess I didn't have as much of I guess I understand the outrage, but
talked about it.
But it was also not meant to be. He was never the Mandarin. He was always an actor. So it was the turning of that narrative, and that was their way, I think, at that time of dealing with the problematic depiction of the Mandarin in 1970s comics, which there was not the same social awareness back then, I guess.
He was nominated for House of Sand and Fog, Sexy Beast, supporting, Bugsy, supporting, deserved, and lead actor in Gandhi, which he won for. So he hasn't won since Gandhi, but he's been keeping up. He's
making, he's still staying engaged and making interesting choices. So I'm here for it. So I haven't seen any like really challenging movies, but I've got some on the slate. Men is one of them, the Alex Garland movie. So I'm interested in that one just because Jesse Buckley. Did you watch it?
Yes, I did.
You did. Don't say anything.
Yes, I did.
Don't say anything.
Okay.
I want to go in as just like pure as possible. Maybe that's the wrong word, but
okay, we'll talk.
Okay.
That's one of two that they were daunting. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, allegedly.
I've seen the trailer. I mean, I know what I'm getting into, but what was the other one?
Northman.
Oh yeah. So I had a question in here. Like I was like, should I go see the Northman in the theater? But that's already passed. I don't even think it's in the theater. But my question from like a couple weeks ago when I was like compiling some stuff was, is the Northman weird enough? That was my question, because we've seen Robert Eggers' other movies, and I was like, so is this gonna be just like a revenge movie that I can rent and just kind of like let that happen in the background and pause it while I refill my popcorn down in the kitchen, or is this going to be a movie that, like The Lighthouse, which was an experience in the movie theater? So, but from what I've heard, I think it's pretty friggin' crazy.
I'm afraid to say anything.
I've heard, I've heard a couple things. So yeah.
Listen, either choice would have been fine. If you saw it in the theater and didn't have an opportunity to go fill up your popcorn, that would have been fine. If you're at home watching it and you need to fill up your popcorn, I think that would also be fine. Not because of any other reason other than that's what we've been used to for the last 2 years. I never advocate not seeing a movie just because you can do what you want to do at home. That's not what I'm advocating for. I just think, and I'll say this, and this is all I'll say, Robert Eggers and Alex Garland are using filmmaking as therapy, and we're their doctors. So they've got, both of them have major issues, and they need to go to therapy and get psychotropic meds, because I can't give them any advice because they're not going to listen to me anyway. But I feel like we're their like case study. They're experimenting on our psyche because they're so messed up in the head that they have to take it out on somebody else. And that actually is a high holy compliment. Both of those films are challenging. Yes.
All right.
I'm trying not to say too much because we can talk about it later. We can do another quick cuts where you finally have seen them, or if you want to talk about Men, I would love to talk about it. If you want to see the Northman and talk about it, then I'll be more than happy to. Actually, we might need meds if we talk about both of those films in one podcast. So, I mean, just let me know so I can get my prescriptions filled, but they're tough. Both of them are tough. And I need to talk with you about it because just like The Lighthouse, I just don't know if I'm set up to understand what he wants from me when he makes a movie. I just don't know. And Alex Garland, I love him. So, I mean, he's 3 for 3 in a way, just because you can't fit him. Now, there are filmmakers now coming around, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers. All of these guys are starting kind of what Paul Thomas Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, that kind of phase of film makers. There are a whole bunch of new ones. I just don't know. Sometimes I worry, because I'm in my 5th decade of life, and sometimes I worry, am I going to be that person when I'm 60 who doesn't understand what somebody in their 20s is trying to say? And I don't want to be that person, but I also sometimes need help to understand, because remember, we talked about this when we saw The Lighthouse. I just don't know what he wants from me. I don't know what the references are. I don't know what he means. He doesn't give you enough. You have to figure it out, which is good. It's challenging. And so sometimes you just have to sit back and stealing this from The Big Chill, William Hurt, sometimes you just have to let art flow over you. And maybe that's more true than not. Maybe I'm just should feel it instead of worrying about what everything means. But I know that there's such smart filmmakers that everything means something. Well, and so I get frustrated that I'm like, am I just not intelligent enough to understand this? Or am I not artsy enough? What is it?
I think some movies are statements and some movies are questions. And so the being able to determine which one is which, I think, is a big deal. And there are certain filmmakers that, have a vision and they want you to experience that. James Cameron, like, he has a vision. He wants you to experience that vision. There's only one way to experience that vision, and it is his way. But I think that we may be in a scenario now where the people pushing the edges of filmmaking are not necessarily making statements, they're more making questions. And so we have to figure out, and you're right, they may be, look at Ari Aster. He made a whole movie about a breakup with a girlfriend, and it turned out to be Midsommar. So, what does that say? So he's working through things on a level that I don't work through them, and he's doing it in a very artistic way. And is he saying things? Maybe, but is he? I think he's mainly just allowing you an experience and allowing you to have an experience that is unlike any other experience. And I think that these other filmmakers fall into that category too.
Well, you know how all films on their posters have a tagline? What should say on all three of those filmmakers' taglines, it should say, make sure before you enter the theater, your prescriptions are filled. Because it's almost like my body can't take it all in, or my psyche can't take it all in. So I almost forget about them as I'm walking out the theater on purpose because it's so mind-bending. And that's not necessarily a compliment or a cut down. It's just, you know, when you go into shock after an accident or something, you don't remember things because that's your body's way of protecting you from traumatic experiences. And I think that's what happened to me with both these two films, Northman and Men.
Well,
so,
I think that, you know, this is not the first time that we've had like a section of filmmakers that do this. David Cronenberg's been doing this for decades.
And he's back now doing it again.
Exactly. Yeah. David Lynch has been doing this for decades. So it's not unprecedented. It's just a new thing.
Cronenberg went, watch this. I'm going to stop doing that body horror thing for just a split second. Get a few Oscar nominations under my belt. Get a couple of character actors, a couple of Oscar nominations, and then I'm going to go right back to it with all of those actors.
Yeah. Wow. I still haven't seen the trailer for like the big trailer for that. Yeah.
Ooh.
And his son's doing it now too, you know? I mean, Brandon Cronenberg is doing it now too.
But not like that. I mean, sort of, but not like that.
Well,
you know,
Crimes of the Future.
Has body horror always been a term?
Well, I mean, I've only really heard it spoken about in relation to David Cronenberg.
Okay.
And I mean, I think you could throw some like David Lynch things in there too, maybe. But I mean, Terry Gilliam has similar things that you could consider horror. And that's the other thing that we talk about is that all three of these contemporary filmmakers and the two movies you're talking about, probably, even though I haven't seen them, may be able to fit into a version of new horror where, you know, horror used to be very strict and have a very, you know, it was a genre for a reason, you know, whether it's like a woman in peril or girl in peril, serial killer, whatever it is, you know, people they have comfort in that, but that's not necessarily the same anymore. There's a different paradigm. I think nowadays the people who may have gravitated towards those like schlocky horror movies are now gravitating towards serial killer podcasts or whatever the shows on, I don't know, TLC or something, where it's just like, hey, here's another Dr. Death or Dirty John or whatever that is a guy who kills women, and that's their kind of like, I don't know, comforting balm or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's not that unusual though. They're just filming it now and they're just doing podcasts on it. There's been people want to marry Charles Manson. I mean, you know, people want to sleep with these people. And Crimes of the Future is Cronenberg's new film. Crimes of the Future.
Crimes of the Future, yeah.
Got a good rating on IMDb.
There you go.
He's also been an actor in quite a few things. He did a Star Trek Discovery. I didn't know that. I didn't know he was such an actor. Yeah, you're right, totally, because we had Tarantino and Fincher, and now it's this new breed of people. And I guess that your thing about experience versus questions is fine. I can accept that. I just sometimes I feel like I need a little map of the stars where I can say, okay,
that's hilarious.
Because that's a David Cronenberg film.
Movie.
I just realized that as I said it. I think I got it when I was looking at his IMDb. I need a map of the questions, and I need to know. But you know, when it comes to a visual art form, or a storytelling visual art form, you feel like the narrative and the story and the characters will bring that out and bring the questions out. I fight during The Lighthouse and I fight during Hereditary to understand what I feel like I'm not understanding. And I would never stand in a film class and say, I don't know what the hell is going on. Somebody tell me, give me a map of the stars to this, because I feel like that's reading to most people. And maybe I'm just not intellectually, artistically smart enough to get it. And it's frustrating.
I think for me, like the movie, one big movie that unlocked it for me was Mulholland Drive, where I watched it the first time and I was like, well, that was a piece of crap. And so I just moved on. And then I went back to it and I watched it again and I was like, okay, I can maybe pull together a few threads here and see if I can cobble the, like, so I watched it the first time and I was like, this did not get spoon fed to me. I'm done. And then the second time I was like, all right, didn't get spoon fed to me. I was probably like 20 years old when I saw that movie the first time. And then the second time I watched it, it's like, okay, this didn't get spoon fed to me, but what can I piece together? I need to work harder to try to figure this thing out. And that's what I enjoy about a lot of films, especially these more challenging films. It's like there's multiple ways you can kind of break them down and you can kind of try to like extract. It's kind of like you're panning for gold type of a thing. If there's a big, huge gold nugget just laying on the ground, you could just pick it up. Well, yeah, that's called Top Gun Maverick. But if you're these really kind of difficult movies that you're trying to like extract information from and extract emotion from, like that's also interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not asking to be spoon-fed, because I actually feel like there was a point in time where I understood what Cronenberg was doing. I understood what Lynch was doing, in particular what Lynch did. Mulholland Drive, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it's brilliant. You got to see this. People were like, what the hell is this movie about? And I was like, I'm not really sure how to explain. Oh, Lost Highway is the big one too, that nobody seemed to understand. And I was like, I think I have a different interpretation than most people. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, and it doesn't matter, but I extracted something from it. And that movie is a mess for a lot of people, but a lot of Lynch stuff is a mess for some people. But something about it made sense, and I could say, okay, that character means this to me, that storyline means this to me, and I'm taking this from it, and I'm feeling that, and all this other stuff. For whatever reason, when I'm watching these new filmmakers, it feels more like almost a documentary instead of a narrative storytelling process. Northman in particular. I was engaged, but I came out with no feelings. And I'm not saying I have to be emotionally, I'm not saying I have to cry or have some kind of sympathy or something, but I have to be emotionally engaged also. And sometimes that's a scary thing for me, because I become so emotionally engaged that I feel things so deeply, I get scared. I stand on the outside of it. It's almost like I'm watching the movie through a window in the back room of the theater, and I'm not really hearing everything, and I'm not really pulling everything in. It's separate from my existence. It's almost like watching a film when you're at home and you're distracted by Facebook or whatever, or, somebody calling from downstairs or going and getting a soda. I feel separated from the actual film, and maybe on a second view, like, I'm curious to see what I'm going to think of The Lighthouse on a second view, because once again, I stood outside that movie. I was never in it. And maybe that's a protection. It's probably a protection, because I probably will need my prescription refilled. I'm joking. But I don't know. But sometimes I feel like some of the new filmmakers, if we're talking about the three that we're talking about right now, are trying to make this huge statement and pose these really deep questions when they forgot about basic storytelling. And I'm not saying you're required to do things from beginning, middle, and end. Look, Tarantino messed that all up for us in the best kind of way. I just think, and this is snarky, but this is how I feel. I feel sometimes they're too clever for their own good. That sometimes the symbolic things, like in The Lighthouse, are so clever and so interesting, but that's it.
See,
there's nothing more underneath it.
That goes a long way for me, though. I'm more interested in striking images than I am in character development. And that's probably a bad thing. I mean, for certain people.
I don't think it's bad or good.
Well,
I just think it
but
is.
what I mean is that, like, that's not like that. I must be a very small minority of moviegoers, because that to me, I would be totally fine with, having a character that doesn't get developed as much, but I get to see these amazing images versus the opposite, just like people sitting at I'm not like saying that people sitting at a table cannot be engaging. It obviously was in mass. So
Right.
I mean, it doesn't preclude me from enjoying, from appreciating the movie. But at the same time, for me, dynamic filmmaking has a lot to do with all of the various parts and pieces that are not necessarily the acting or the characters, but it can also be the surrounding, the music, the score, the sound design, the production design, the shot selection,
AKA David Lynch.
Yeah.
He's everything like that. So I get what you're saying. And I think that I can watch something for its visuals more so than its narrative or its character development or any kind of acting. I can see that, Suspiria, perfect example. Although all of the above is intact in that movie. I think it's an interesting narrative. I think it's well acted and it's visually stunning. So I think that there's a possibility of doing all of those at one time, and maybe that's more interesting to me, but we'll see. I don't want to be snarky or sound like, in my day, I walked uphill backwards in the snow. I want to be able to be open-minded enough to understand these filmmakers, and I think that I am. I think after I watch a film that perplexes me, I should go and investigate it and research it. Just like in the art history classes, when somebody was saying this was this and this is why, then I would research it and I'd be like, oh, okay, I get that now. I get why that's important because of the historical fact of it, because of the artistic fact of it, but this also means this. So maybe I'm just that type of person. I feel something emotionally throughout watching something visually, but then I have to go and research it, which is probably opposite of what most people do. So I don't know.
That may be why you didn't like Doctor Strange, because I feel like whenever I watch MCU shows, especially the shows, I have to go to YouTube and watch the explainer videos on like, this is how this ties into the comic books from the 1960s. And, this could be teasing that. Like, I enjoy that part of it, but also like, if you don't do that, you may be missing huge plot points that they're building into these shows. And if they're getting to that point with the MCU movies, then oof.
Well, we'll talk about it if and when you see it. I was just disappointed in some of the choices that they made. That's all.
Okay. All right.
That's all. It's not that I liked it or disliked it. It's that I wanted more of some things and less of other things. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can tweet us at actorengineer. We're on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast, and we'll see you next time.